Welcome back to Forum Daily News. I'm Wyatt Sharp, and this is your U.S. election tracker update. Well, former President Donald Trump has now been found guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records, of course, all stemming from the $130,000 hush money payment made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. That was really just in the days leading up to the 2016 election campaign, so quite a while ago now. Joining me now to discuss all of it is Mehek Cooke. She is a Republican strategist, and also with me is Jesse Dollemore, host of the Dollemore Daily, airing on YouTube. Thank you so much to the both of you for making the time.
Happy to join you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Wyatt.
Of course. So, Mehek, I suppose I just want to start out with you here because, of course, after this really historic thing happened where Donald Trump was convicted on these counts, he's now the first president or former president to be deemed a convicted felon. You obviously had a lot of people providing their reaction and commentary to it. And the number one thing coming from Republicans is something we've heard for the past while now, that they believe the legal system is being weaponized against him. But I guess I would put it to you, the argument that people on the other end of the spectrum are making, to what extent is this just the legal system working as it should, kind of solidifying the argument that, no one, even former presidents, are above the law?
So I think everybody would agree to what you just said, Wyatt. Nobody should be above the law, right? And as an attorney, I can tell you, whether it was Joe Biden or President Trump, I want to make sure that we have equality and justice and the rule of law prevails. In this particular case, it really shouldn't be about Republicans versus Democrats. Let's just look at the case and the facts. You had a judge presiding over this case that donated 2 different times to Joe Biden. You have a New York statute that specifically required him to recuse himself. He did not do that. His daughter was also fundraising, making millions of dollars for top Democrats, $93 million for Joe Biden, and to continue that campaign against President Trump. You also had a federal elections attorney that was a previous attorney that was not even allowed to testify in terms of what a campaign contribution is. So when you continue to see not one, but 5 different instances where the rule of law is not working, there's a problem. And the biggest issue we have to discuss is this unconstitutional gag order against President Trump. The American people truly wanted to hear from him during that trial, and he wasn't able to speak.
And Jesse, perhaps I'll come to you now and you can, respond to some of what Mehek said. But also, I guess I would put to you now what Republicans are saying. They're talking about the fact that the sentencing, for example, in this trial is just 4 days before the Republican National Convention. They feel as if the prosecution in this case has it out to get them.
Well, I would say that there are a lot of those charges and claims from Republicans across the board here in America. We're in a situation where you have someone who has done the crime, has been convicted of the crime, has faced a jury of his peers, and now wants extra special treatment above and beyond what anybody else would get to delay sentencing because he happens to be running for president. As far as some of the other charges that were made by Mehek about the judge and his twice donation, we're talking about like $35 that was donated in one of those campaign fundraising efforts, and they got a T-shirt in return for their donation. He hasn't given hundreds and hundreds of dollars. In fact, it's laughable to even bring up the contribution.
Well, Mehek, let me come to you and ask you about what kind of can be classified as a campaign contribution, because this is an argument that's being made, by many people as to what can actually be classified as that. So if we're looking at the actual purpose of the payment, I guess a lot of people talking about the timing of this, the fact that it was made in the lead up to the 2016 election, really just days before. And, you wouldn't make a payment of that nature if you weren't trying to, influence the outcome of the election. And if you look at some parallels, for example, to this, for example, the John Edwards case, there was the issue of personal finances versus campaign finances. And when you intersect them, that's kind of when you get into the issue of, trying to influence the outcome of the election here. So, is there any truth to the argument that, Democrats are making and just people in general are making that this was indeed something that was being made to try and, sway people one way or the other in the election?
Well, I think you have to just look at the testimony. You had David Pecker on the stand, and then it was repeated to the jury that President Trump specifically said, "I don't pay to kill stories." So we have to be very clear here. There were so many individuals, including Hope Hicks, that took the stand and testified that President Trump was really concerned about his family. There are a lot of people, when you're a celebrity, that come after you. Catch and kill They're called settlement agreements. They're not illegal. So when we talk about campaign contributions, that's to further an election. And let's remember that the DA, the Southern District in New York, and the Federal Elections Commission specifically passed on this case. They said that they found no violations.
Convenient that Donald Trump is now suddenly concerned about his family when that concern didn't seem to be anywhere when he was having sex with porn stars and then paying them to be quiet.
Okay, we are going to have to take a quick break. We will resume this debate when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to Forum Daily News. Before the break, Mehek Cooke and Jesse Dollemore talking about, of course, the hush money trial for former President Trump and the fact that he has now been found guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records. Jesse, you were about to make a point just before we went to break. Go ahead and continue.
Well, I was just saying that the Republicans banging on about how Donald Trump was just trying to protect his family. Where was that concern for protecting his family while he was having sex outside of marriage, while his wife was either getting ready to have give birth to Barron or taking care of Barron at home? Where was that concern when that was taking place, and then paying her to keep her mouth shut so he could
but that's an
sail into the presidency?
That's a total allegation. In fact, you have a written statement from Stormy Daniels denying that an affair ever happened, only when she realized she could actually make money, which is called extortion, has she brought these charges against President Trump. And let's be clear, there's the rule of law and then there's morals. Every today wants to sit and talk about morals. Let's have that discussion any day, anytime, anywhere. But if we're going to talk about the rule of law, let's stick to the rule of law. Let's talk about what's legal versus what's illegal. What's illegal is what Hunter Biden has done, which is lie on a federal application, hold a gun charge. And I just spoke to a Democrat 20 minutes ago who told me he just pressed yes on a little box. It's no big deal. That's a felony in America. I mean, we have to talk about equal application of law. So if you agree with me, then let's go into the legal debate and let's leave the slandering that Stormy Daniels and so many Democrats have done in terms of morals out of our discussion.
Two things. One, Donald Trump absolutely had the chance under the Constitution to testify on his own behalf and deny the affair. He chose not to. Secondly, I agree wholeheartedly. If indeed Hunter Biden broke the law, he will be found guilty by a jury of his peers, and he should be sentenced accordingly, even up to and including prison time. So there's not much gulf between us on that.
Mehek, let me come to you on this point here, because, I mean, what Jesse's talking about is how he would be willing to accept if there was something that Hunter Biden did, and then, he would accept the fact that he would have to face repercussions for that. But if we look at what Republicans have been saying, specifically those in the Trump camp, whether it be as it relates to the election and, they were unwilling to accept the results of the election. I mean, and now, of course, with this case, they're, making a lot of accusations as it relates to some of the people that are involved in the case. But from a political strategy standpoint, would it not be better perhaps to, actually focus on perhaps some of these kitchen table issues that Americans are, really concerned about, whether it be the cost of living, the fact that they can't go to the grocery store without spending, over $100? I mean, how much is the reluctance to actually, from both sides, not just from the Republicans, to talk about some of these kitchen table issues contributing to kind of the voter apathy that Americans are facing on kind of a day-to-day basis?
Wyatt, that's such an astute question. I'm glad you asked. While Democrats were trying to indict President Trump in a New York courthouse for 6 weeks, President Trump took every opportunity to talk about just that. He stood outside the courtroom. He went to the Bronx, held the biggest rally we've seen, and he spoke about inflation and the fact that we cannot afford our gas, groceries, or even everyday prices today, in addition to illegal immigration. So even with one hand tied behind his back, in fact, two hands tied behind his back, President Trump has continued to speak directly to the American people about the issues that matter most. That is exactly what he's doing in our swing states. And that's why he has seen a resounding amount of support from Joe Biden's Democrat base, Black voters, Asians, Hispanics, so many that Democrats have taken for granted.
Alrighty, and also, I mean, I guess I would just point out in some of those same speeches, he does also still talk about some of the election stuff as well. But Jesse, last word to you.
Well, I just think that the message is resonating. Americans widely are waking up, and those who paid attention to the trial are coming around. Even up to and including 16% of Republicans in a recent ABC News Ipsos poll say that they think Donald Trump should suspend his campaign. and 52% of independents. So it's not looking good for Trump. The facts are on the ground, and Americans they're paying attention.
Alrighty, we will leave our conversation there. Mehek Cooke and Jesse Dollemore, thanks so much to the both of you.
Thank you.